I'd like to introduce Marsha Brewster, who is the president of the Westchester chapter of United Nations Association, who will introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Ginger. It's been a great day, I must say. It's been very inspiring and exciting. And I am now honored to introduce Representative Nita Lowey, who has been my own congressional representative since she was elected in Congress in 1988. She represents Westchester and Rockland County in New York State. Throughout her tenure in Congress, Representative Lowey has been a strong proponent of consistent, constructive U.S. leadership at the UN and a champion for women's rights. As the chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee for the State Department and Foreign Operations, she was instrumental in getting the U.S. to pay back almost $1 billion in back dues to the UN in 2009. Representative Lowey has been our champion for engagement at the UN, supporting development and diplomacy as core pillars of U.S. foreign policy. Representative Lowey has also been a defender of women around the world, protecting U.S. funding for international family planning programs and supporting repeal of the global gag rule. She supports U.S. funding for the UN Population Fund, that is UNFPA, in its important work to improve women's reproductive health. And in 2010, UNFPA and Planned Parenthood and the UN Foundation named her the Family Planning Hero for the year. That was 2010. In addition to her support for UNFPA, Representative Lowey has fought to ensure that the U.S. fully funds its UN regular budget and peacekeeping dues, and has gone on record opposing attempts to link UN reform measures with paying our dues. Representative Lowey has also been a strong advocate for ensuring quality educational opportunities for children around the world, successfully working to scale up U.S. investment in international basic education all over the world in line with the Millennium Development Goals, and it seeks to achieve universal education for all children by 2015. I cannot list all of Representative Lowey's accomplishments on behalf of the UN here, but they are considerable. I am proud that she is my representative. For those of us who love the UN, we also love Representative Lowey. Without further ado, Representative Lowey.
Good afternoon, and thank you so very much for that very generous introduction. I am really honored to have the opportunity to address you today. It is such a pleasure for me to be here with so many people dedicated to maintaining our country's leadership here at the United Nations. It is extraordinary that you have all taken the time to hear from UN officials and other experts and to really engage in the critical international issues facing us today. As a longtime member of the House Appropriations Committee, and as the former chair and current ranking member of the Subcommittee on State and Foreign Operations, and I am pleased that the fiscal year 2012 bill includes $1.4 billion for our assessed dues, another $348 million for voluntary contributions to many of the UN agencies doing important work, and this is in addition to $1.8 billion the U.S. provides to support UN peacekeeping missions critical to stability in some of the most difficult environments in the world. Now, I want to make it clear, I have fought hard over the years to support the United Nations because I truly believe that membership in the UN makes our country more secure, more prosperous, and it supports U.S. efforts to advance democracy, human rights, health, and development throughout the world. In Libya, when Muammar Gaddafi announced that he would slaughter his own people when faced with a popular uprising against his dictatorship, UN Resolution 1970 provided international legitimacy for the military intervention. Working through the UN, the U.S. was able to garner the support of the international community and the participation of several other countries in the military effort. Unilateral U.S. action would have been diplomatically risky and economically unviable, while collaborating with the UN allowed us to achieve our foreign policy goals with international backing. In Afghanistan, as we are preparing to end the U.S. combat mission and transition to a civilian-led partnership with that country, the UN Assistance Mission to Afghanistan, or UNAMA, has been working alongside U.S. development experts to rebuild Afghanistan's capacity, infrastructure, and human capital. 32 UN agencies are part of UNAMA, allowing it to leverage the expertise of a wide range of professionals. The UN is a vital partner, able to draw on meaningful knowledge of the Afghan culture, connections throughout the country, and international legitimacy. In these two examples, as with efforts throughout the world, the UN provides intangible benefits as well, opening up dialogue, forging relationships, laying the groundwork for peace. This is why the UN's peace efforts have been so successful, with direct UN involvement in over 170 peace agreements since its creation in 1945. U.S. membership in the UN allows us to augment our investments by leveraging resources from the international community. For example, the Government Accountability Office has estimated that a peacekeeping mission to a place like Haiti would cost twice as much for the U.S. to lead alone. Since the U.S. pays about 1/4 of any UN peacekeeping mission, we spend only 1/8 of what a unilateral mission would cost. And as a member of the Security Council, we take seriously our responsibility to support peacekeeping missions, and the UN provides a cost-effective opportunity for us to advance our common goals. The United Nations is also a leader in global health, development, humanitarian response, and its work on these critical issues enhances American efforts to save lives and promote human dignity. The Arab Spring resulted in thousands of refugees throughout the region, and within days, UN agencies were on the ground providing food, shelter, and other services. The UN Population Fund, which is often the only provider of critical life-saving family planning services, operates in over 100 countries where the United States does not have bilateral family planning programs. The UN Children's Fund provides 40% of the world's vaccine doses for children, far outpacing the impact that any one country can have. The United Nations Commission on International Trade Law works to harmonize business laws and regulations to facilitate international trade. The World Intellectual Property Organization strives to protect intellectual property rights, spur innovation and creativity, and promote economic development. These organizations are just a few in a long list of affiliated and specialized agencies that are supported by the United States and whose often unsung efforts make the world safer, better connected, and more prosperous. Now the United Nations is far from perfect, but in each of its imperfections, we can see clearly how U.S. engagement can push the organization to be better and to make improvements. Last week's failure to achieve a Security Council resolution on Syria was a disappointing example of how the UN can be too slow to act in times of crisis. The people of Syria need the support of the international community in the face of brutal and violent repression. But rather than give up, the United States will continue to push for consensus on a meaningful resolution. The UN also frequently demonstrates a bias against Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East and a strong ally of the United States. Anti-Israel resolutions vastly outnumber resolutions on crises and dire human rights situations throughout the world, showing an unfortunate tendency to criticize Israel while allowing some truly terrible regimes to go unnoticed by the General Assembly or the Human Rights Council. Here, too, U.S. leadership has been essential, and the U.S. veto of the Security Council resolution on settlements last year stopped an effort by certain countries to interfere with the prospects for renewed negotiations. And earlier this week, Israel was voted onto the executive board of the UN Development Program, a real milestone that would not have been possible without U.S. support. Even in the Human Rights Council, which has been the target of significant legitimate criticism, U.S. engagement has led to positive and productive outcomes. As Secretary Clinton has said, we remain engaged with the Human Rights Council, quote, not because we don't see its flaws, but because we think that participating gives us the best chance to be a constructive influence. The United States led successful efforts to create new special rapporteurs on Iran and on freedom of assembly and association. In June, the Human Rights Council passed an historic resolution supporting equal rights for the LGBT community and seeking an end to discrimination based on sexual orientation. U.S. leadership has also helped keep the Human Rights Council focused on crisis situations, including, for example, successfully pushing for a special on the situation in the Côte d'Ivoire in 2010. In addition, the UN needs to be more streamlined, efficient, performance-oriented, and innovative. But as Ambassador Wright highlighted in testimony before my subcommittee last year, no one pushes harder than the United States to protect whistleblowers, impose budget discipline, and promote transparency. I was able to work with my colleague across the aisle, Rep. Kate Ranger, to increase the level of transparency in the UN to make sure citizens who support the institution with their tax dollars can more easily access audits and program information. It is precisely because we are aware of the UN's shortcomings that we are able to constructively and effectively push for change. Finally, it is worth noting that the United Nations provides direct economic economic benefits for the United States. The UN and affiliated agencies contract with U.S. companies for a wide range of goods and services, including logistics support, telecommunication services, food supplies, building materials, health products, resulting in literally hundreds of millions of dollars each year for the U.S. economy. Right here in New York City, we have reaped the economic benefits as well. The Capital Master Plan that is bringing UN headquarters up to building codes will provide a safe environment for its employees and visitors, many of whom are New Yorkers. All but 3 contracts for renovation went to U.S. companies, generating $2.4 billion in revenue. Put another way, for every dollar we contribute to this project, $4 goes to American companies in construction contracts. I want to conclude with a quote from a U.S. president who on the opening day of a UN General Assembly session noted that, quote, "Our goals are those that guide this very body. Our ends are the same as those of the UN's founders, who sought to replace a world at war where the rule of law would prevail, where human rights were honored, where development would blossom, where conflict would give way to freedom from violence." These words were spoken by Ronald Reagan in 1983, and they remain true to this day. I will return to Washington next week to start the appropriations process for fiscal year 2013. I expect the State and Foreign Operations Bill will face significant challenges again this year, with many members in the House majority calling for a reduction in the support of the United Nations. I look forward to working with the United Nations Association and everyone in this room to fight back against these counterproductive cuts. Together, we can ensure that the United States remains a leader in the United Nations and the American people continue to benefit from the international cooperation, stability, and economic development that the UN provides. Thank you very much.